I hope everybody can hear me clearly. Everybody can hear me clearly, wonderful. So this press conference was called basically on behalf of Gambian Women Are Free to Choose. My name is Dr. Fwamba Sia Amadou. I'm going to begin first by telling you a little bit about myself and my activism here in Gambia and the work that I have been doing among women in African and Muslim women here in the Gambia, but in other countries as well. I am originally Sierra Leonean American. My parents are Sierra Leonean, and I was born in the United States. This topic of female circumcision, and I use the term female circumcision deliberately. Um, I know when some of you entered, I heard someone saying, oh, this is the FGM press conference. Now, FGM, female genital mutilation, is a terminology that I have always rejected. And it is because of that word mutilation, right? Many people say, well, the WHO definition is so, so, and so. But we have to focus on the dictionary definition of mutilation. And the dictionary definition it's twofold. One, there is disfigurement, meaning that you have ruined something. You've made it ugly, so there's disfigurement. And then there's dysfunction, meaning that part that has been disfigured is no longer functional. And this is completely inaccurate. Not only is it inaccurate, I think it is very, very demeaning to African women who have undergone circumcision, who are circumcised. Is demeaning to African women, it is demeaning to our mothers, and it is demeaning to society as a whole. So that is a terminology. I pray that even you as journalists will really reconsider when you are referring to the practice here in the Gambia, which we prefer to refer to as female circumcision. Now, for me, I have my own personal experience as a Sierra Leonean, being brought up in America. Female circumcision and male circumcision, of course, takes place in Sierra Leone within, culturally, within a process called Bondo initiation. So when I was old enough, my mother and my grandmother wanted myself and some of my female relatives to go back to Sierra Leone and to undergo this process. I was already in college and I was very happy to be initiated. Of course, at the time, I didn't know anything about female circumcision. So, and being brought up in America, going to Sierra Leone, having this experience, it was a culture shock for me. However, in as much as there are some elements that, of course, there's like male circumcision, there's pain, there's some elements that one could consider painful. I've always been very upfront about the positive aspects of it as well. The fact that there's a community involvement, family, it's a celebration, and a transition from what I would call girlhood to womanhood. And the same process occurs for boys who go through male initiation. So they transition from boyhood to adult manhood. So for me, it was largely positive. And when I came back to America and started hearing about this movement, this campaign, to abolish what Western women at that time had coined female genital mutilation, that was also a surprise because it didn't reflect my own experience. It didn't reflect the experience of the many women that I had, that I know, that I grew up with, that raised me. And certainly it didn't reflect the experience of the women that I saw on the field. So I became interested in this topic. I decided to pursue a degree in anthropology so that I could understand what the practice means culturally, traditionally, as well as to religious faith for those who uphold it as an expression of Islamic faith. I wanted to know the reasons why women in our community uphold this practice that Western women are saying is so bad. So I came to the Gambia to do my fieldwork. And I did my field work in Brikama among mainly Mandinka women, but I also worked with Fula women. I studied also the practice in Jola communities. So I studied extensively the practice. I, participated in initiation ceremonies. I was able to experience the whole range of emotions that girls or young women go through, and it was an incredible experience for me. But when I left, I realized that um, these women pretty much believed what I believed, that this was a positive experience, this was an important cultural practice, but also religious practice, and that we didn't have too much of an issue with it. So I formed Gambian Women Are Free to Choose in 2016. After many years of research and also interacting with activists, knowing that there was an intention to criminalize the practice that they were calling mutilation, female genital mutilation, throughout Africa, and knowing that this would cause a lot of problems for African women, as well as women who live as immigrants in Western countries. I will stop there, and if you have any questions about my background, please feel free to ask me afterwards. For now, I want to welcome Honorable Almami Jiba, who has been instrumental in instigating or pushing for change here in the Gambia. And he was very excited to come and join me this morning. I'm also excited to welcome Ustaz Hawa Drame, who again did not hesitate to come this morning and to bring some amazing women, female elders in the community to come and hear what I have to say, and also to support this message. Now, I want to state that, this is, and of course, the journalists, this is very actually important, that you journalists who came out, I put out a statement on what this press conference was going to be about, and you journalists chose to come out. And I really have to commend you. Not only are you courageous and you're certainly doing the right thing, but you're practicing journalism. I spoke to the Secretary General of your press union yesterday, and not to single him out personally, but I was very disappointed to learn that there's a code of conduct within the press union that journalists cannot come officially from the press union to an event like this, where we are talking about a practice that is fundamental to the cultural beliefs and the religious beliefs of Gambian women, that affects Gambian women. When you know that there is an individual who is a scholar, who is also connected with other scholars throughout the world, that has information, that has data, that is very research, that is very valuable in terms of discounting some of the what I call propaganda from FGM activists, that journalists or the press union would have a policy to not attend this kind of a platform. So again, I give you credit and I thank you so much for coming out, and hope that you will continue to hold an open mind and to hear all sides of the debate on female circumcision. So on that note, I wanted to also, let me not forget, I have a colleague who has flown here all the way from Australia, who's doing research in Australia on criminalization of FGM in Australia. And so she has come to learn more from women in our communities about their experiences here. So I'm very glad that she could make it. She's also going to be at the symposium that we are organizing for next week. I'm going to be completely upfront that Gambian Women Are Free to Choose, which was formed in 2016, we are in full support of the repeal of the female circumcision ban and any form of criminalization of African or Muslim women for reasons that we have indicated in our press releases. So journalists, I ask you to go to our website, awafc.org, and look up our press releases because we have very detailed statements justifying our reasons for supporting this bill that was introduced by Honorable Jiba. The main reason, of course, is that we believe that the current female circumcision ban contravenes our constitutional and basic universal human rights to equality, to dignity, and to self-determination. By self-determination, I mean self-definition. The ability or the right for us as African women, as Muslim women, to decide for ourselves who we are, our identity, and our faith. So in that sense, I think that the current ban on female circumcision, again, the terminology is not female genital mutilation, contravenes our basic human rights, which is guaranteed under human rights documents that apply to everybody everywhere. So again, we believe that we are equal to men. Male circumcision is practiced here for religious reasons, for cultural reasons, and we believe that female circumcision as well women should have the right to uphold female circumcision as well. Adult women in other countries around the world, which I will talk about in a moment, adult women as well as adolescent girls in Western countries, white women and their adolescent daughters can also go to the doctor's office and get procedures, the same procedures, and pay thousands of dollars for the same procedures that are happening here in Gambia. And those procedures have a different terminology. They call it female genital cosmetic surgery, while they call the procedures that African and Muslim women around the world support, they call that mutilation. So I think that that is wrongful discrimination. So this press conference specifically is concerned with not just the reasons why we support the repeal of the female circumcision ban, but the interference from outside entities, external interference with National Assembly members, as Honorable Jiba would know, and the political disenfranchisement of the majority of Gambian women with respect to the Women's Act Amendment 2023. For several months, as I indicated in the press conference announcement, we have watched with increasing concern the behind-the-scenes maneuverings of Western created, and I'm going to repeat that, Western NGO created and financed anti-FGM activists, such as Jaha Dukure, and I name her for a very specific reason. Normally, I would never do that, but I will make it clear in a moment why I named Jaha Dukure. But it's very important to know that her story, as far as I know, is fraudulent, and yet she's put forward as a representation, as somebody who is representative of Gambian women and the experience of Gambian women. And I will go ahead and explain to you why it is I'm saying that her story is completely fraudulent. It was made up by herself and the NGO that she was working with, which is called Equality Now in New York. So, people like Jaha Dukure are backed by powerful donor countries such as the US and the UK to influence the deliberations and decision-making processes of democratically elected National Assembly members of the Republic of the Gambia in favor of upholding a ban on female circumcision, which is very unpopular. So we're calling attention to the Gambian public and international community, once again, as I mentioned, to the 3 press releases that we have issued over the past year, reasserting our support for the repeal of the female circumcision ban and expressing our deep concerns about the interference of outside countries, of UN agencies. I have a similar organization in Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone Women Are Free to Choose. And there we have seen the active involvement of UN agencies as well. um, and international human rights organizations such as Amnesty International. We wrote a specific press release directed to Amnesty International in their efforts to disenfranchise the vast majority of Gambian women. This press conference is intended to contribute to the national debate on female circumcision. And this is very important, by positioning the question of the autonomy of Gambian women, freedom of Gambian women, as well as our equality with men and other adult women in the world who uphold similar bodily practices for similar religious, cultural, or aesthetic reasons. As I noted, the aim of this press conference is threefold: to call for an end to external pressure on Gambian National Assembly members to uphold a female circumcision ban. This pressure includes behind the scenes use of threats to withhold aid. I have colleagues who've been a part of this process, so we know that this is happening. The threat to withhold aid from the Gambia. The use and abuse of financial inducements of National Assembly members. For example, recently, the alleged all-expense paid trips to third countries, I think in this case it was Egypt, and the generous per diems that go with these arrangements. Again, another example, bringing in representatives from the African Union, former African female presidents. We've heard about this. It hasn't happened yet. I understand their trip has been postponed. Or the Pan-African Association of Parliamentarians to meet with National Assembly members and officials within the Justice Department. We believe that the first two, what I call carrot and stick strategies, that is financial inducements coupled with threats to withhold aid, are flagrant examples of attempts to trample on the democratic rights of Gambian women who chose their representatives at the National Assembly in free and fair elections. And they chose them to serve their interests, right? The interests of the women and their constituencies. The third example of using Pan-African organizations, particularly the African Union, we believe compromises the sovereignty of the Gambia as an independent, free member of the African Union, as well as the right of Gambian citizens, especially women, to choose how they are governed. In essence, it's our position that this undue influence and questionable interference, however well intended, from donor countries and Western NGOs directly and indirectly pressuring National Assembly members goes against the Constitution of the Gambia, the sovereignty of this country, and the duty of the government to represent and serve its people. Second objective is to call the National Assembly members' attention back to what should be at issue here, which is the evidence base, or what I would say the lack thereof, regarding assumptions and allegations made by anti-FGM activists about the supposed life-threatening harms of female circumcision as practiced in the Gambia, and the supposed sexual oppression or subjugation of women through this practice. And this is very disturbing because there are real issues that are affecting Gambian women: maternal mortality, right? Teenage pregnancy, a lot of issues that are affecting Gambian women, and the exaggeration of the health risks and outcomes for women with female circumcision really, I think, in a sense, takes away attention from the problems that women are suffering from here in the Gambia. So we want to be able to ask the National Assembly members to focus on the evidence. And when I say evidence, I'm not just talking about the anecdotal evidence, so to speak, what one doctor may say or another doctor may say. We're talking about scientific studies. Anti-FGM activists have had over 50 years to be able to come up with sufficient evidence, medical evidence, scientific evidence, with control groups to show what these health risks are and the prevalence of these health risks, and how circumcised women somehow are worse off than uncircumcised women. We know here in the Gambia through studies such as one that was done by the MRC several years ago. I believe it was in 2000. That this is not true. And in this study, where circumcised and uncircumcised women were compared, there was very little difference that was found in terms of health outcomes for both groups. These studies you can find. I will make them available to you, journalists, when you at the end of the session. You can find them on my website, but they're also, you can Google them as well and be able to locate them there. So again, we know that for decades, the FGM industry has used back to the press, the mainstream press, the local African media, to suppress research and important facts, scientific and medical evidence that contradict the FGM meta-narrative. That is what activists say all the time about FGM. Muslim women, and the vast majority of affected women, that is circumcised women, in the Gambia, their experiences, or I should say our experiences, do not fit this stereotype of mutilation. And the continual use of this term, female genital mutilation, just the term itself, because the thing is that it continues to be repeated in the media: mutilation, mutilation, mutilation. And so the impression is that women are being destroyed, sexually destroyed, that women are being harmed, that women are dying. I have done several interviews in the past where I have asked activists to show me where the evidence is that women and girls are dying of female circumcision, and it has never been presented, right? So there's a term that I use, which is called FGM gaslighting. This is telling African women lies about our own bodies, lies about our sexuality, lies about our, excuse me for being graphic, but our genitalia. For instance, when they say, oh, the entire clitoris is removed from a woman, there is no female circumcision procedure in the world where the entire clitoris of a woman is removed. You would kill a woman or a girl if that should happen, right? So this is a kind of misinformation, or as I say, gaslighting, that they are presenting to women, and young adolescent girls are very vulnerable to believe these myths about themselves. Young girls now are thinking that they're never going to be able to enjoy sex, they're never going to be able to enjoy their marriage, their marital homes, because they have been somehow sexually mutilated. This is wrong. The idea that we don't have agency as African women, meaning we can't say no. If we see that women are dying in our communities, if we see that girls, our own daughters that we gave birth to, are dying or they're suffering, that we can't say no to this tradition, this is outrageous. African women would not continue a tradition that is harmful to themselves, to ourselves, and to our daughters. Then there's the idea that this gaslighting term extends to ideas about the role of patriarchy. That's a heavy word. I'm not going to try and dissect it here, but basically male domination, right? That this practice happens because women are controlled by men, that men, for some reason, right? Imagine what is being said by men, that African men are so barbaric that they do not want their wives to experience pleasure, that they would condone something that is, completely barbaric on their own daughters. So the idea that this is happening because of men, and of course Islam is used as an example to show that women are subjugated, women are oppressed. When you look at the press and they're referring to Muslim women, usually they only show men, right? They will show pictures of Muslim men, and you don't see the women, which gives the impression that women cannot even speak and that women have no say in this. And again, this is a complete myth. In Africa, it's women who control this practice. Just like it's men who control male circumcision, women control and manage female circumcision and initiation traditions. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. So the media in general, I'm not talking about specific journalists, have failed to investigate the wealth of information and literature that contradicts the myths, I call them myths, that are propagated by FGM activists. I want to suggest for you to have a look at a particular paper. It's a public policy advisory paper entitled 7 Things to Know About Female Genital Surgeries in Africa. And this was authored by a group of international scholars, physicians, again, human rights experts, feminists. Professor Moore is a part of that group. I myself has been a part of that group. Very eminent scholars in the field who surveyed the entire literature, the existing literature on female circumcision and supposedly the harms of female circumcision. And we were able to critique what the standard tale is, right, and show that these myths are not true. The 7 facts, I won't go through all 7, but I'll just highlight the 4. I've alluded to some, but the first idea is that women who are circumcised, who have undergone circumcision, again, excuse my directness, but do not enjoy sex and do not have orgasms. This is not true. And the evidence is there in the literature. Studies that have been done with women over and over again throughout Africa indicate very clearly that this is not true. I also point to my own experience. I was an adult woman at the time that I underwent this practice. Nothing like that ever happened to me. So, and I know that my experience is not unique, that circumcised women, uncircumcised women, it depends on your situation, it depends on your partner, it depends on so many different things. So we are really teaching young girls and women wrong information about their bodies and their sexuality. The health hazards. We hear all the time, women are dying, girls are dying, women are being maimed. More boys die or are maimed from male circumcision worldwide than girls, than females, right? We're not, right? And that's not to say that I'm against, male circumcision, but if we are looking at deaths and morbidity from circumcision, we need to be concerned about male circumcision. But why aren't we concerned about male circumcision? Because these anti-FGM activists would never go after men and tell them to end their practice, because they respect men. Because they know that men, they respect the fact that men have that autonomy and can decide for themselves. But they do not respect African and Muslim women. That is a problem. So again, this document, ladies and gentlemen, I will ask that you look at to get the specific references that I'm alluding to. Again, the patriarchy argument, the idea that this practice is done because of men, it fails to consider that wherever female circumcision is practiced, male circumcision is practiced. The two practices are complementary. I did my entire PhD thesis in trying to understand why the practice is complementary, and it's about ideals about gender and marriage, male and female, husband and wife, the complementarity of that. So I think at the core of that, because those are the core reasons behind the justification of the practice, this is what maybe Western feminists are against. Again, that related to patriarchy, the idea that it's men controlling women, and women doing this because they have no choice, because they are trapped by culture, a barbaric custom. Somehow we don't know what we are doing. Women are uneducated, women are illiterate. My mother was very well educated and a practicing nurse, and was still excited for me to be initiated and go through circumcision. So it's a myth. In Sierra Leone, many women, not most, but many women who uphold the practice are very articulate, very well educated, and as far as I know, that is why it is impossible to pass a law in Sierra Leone against the practice, because of the power and the education of women at the very top. So these are some of the myths that that were highlighted in this paper that I'm referring to you, that I'm referring you to look up. The public policy advisory is being updated currently to focus more on the harms of exactly what we are talking about now, the criminalization of so-called FGM, and how that impacts individual women as well as communities. As I mentioned, Professor Rogers is studying the impact of this on an Indian Muslim community in Australia. But here in the Gambia, who's being affected by this? Supposedly this practice is supposed to be, is men forcing women to do this, but who are the people that are being chased after? Who are the people that are being locked up? It's women. Right? And usually these are women who do not have access to resources, for example, the ones in the Gambia, and who cannot defend themselves. Right now, my organization in the Gambia has spent thousands of dollars defending a community and women within that community that were arrested under false allegations of committing FGM. So it's women, again, who are paying the price for this criminalization. We believe that this information is very important for the Gambian public. Aside from male circumcision, as I mentioned before, there are other practices, genital practices in other countries, such as female genital cosmetic surgeries, intersex surgery. I won't define what all of this is, but you can look them up. Intersex surgery, transgender surgery, penile and clitoral piercing, so many different things that people across the world in a wide range of communities do to their genitalia. But for some reason, anti-FGM activists seem to be fixated on the bodies of African and Muslim women. We believe that the Gambian public is entitled to know information about what is going on in the rest of the world, what kinds of genital practices are taking place in the rest of the world, so that we understand that we are not unique, that we're not unique in this, and that we are, in effect, being singled out and being discriminated against. And so we have a right as women, as knowledgeable women, as women leaders in our communities, as mothers, to stand up and say, no, we're not going to be discriminated against. We're entitled to know that our views and experiences are affirmed, reaffirmed through the research and medical and scientific evidence. And the last thing I want to discuss is the issue of representation. Who has the legal, moral, and actual right to represent the views of the multitude of Gambian women? Who has the right to decide what it constitutes a subjugation for women? What is a harm to our bodies? Who has a right to make these decisions for us? The way that things are going here in the Gambia right now, it seems as if outsiders are given that privilege. The Gambian women themselves, like the women sitting around this room, are deemed not capable of making up their own minds about their bodies. That, I think, is absolutely wrong. And our organization, of course, we're here to amplify the voices of the vast majority of grassroots women. I mentioned Jaha Dukure earlier when I opened up. And it's not something that I'm happy to do. In fact, everything within me is reluctant to do that. Through the years, I know that there have been women in our communities who have benefited, if you will, from anti-FGM campaigns, anti-FGM activism. There are many, many, many women, some were even referred to me in America, who needed asylum. They needed to stay in the United States or in European countries. And obviously they would face problems if they came back to their countries of origin, economically, financially. So this was a way out for them. And this is why I could not criticize many of these women for using the FGM terminology and excuse as a way to stay in Western countries. That is survival, not justifying it, but I can understand it as a means of survival. Then there are women who, in a way, I think undermine the efforts of sincere women who have opposed this practice. And I'll talk about them in a moment. There are women who have been very strategic. They know that by making themselves appear to be a victim, that they can get a public, global public platform. They can also get access to resources. They can get access to so many things. And unfortunately, I believe that Jaha Doucouré fits in that category. I have spoken to her personally. There was a time after I did an interview with, with the BBC, and she actually called me. And she said to me at that time, look, um, I don't know what you think about us. And I think when she said us, she was referring to young FGM activists. We are not stupid. We know exactly what we're doing. If white women want to believe that we are victims, if white women want to believe this about us, why not play them? Why not go ahead and play the role until we get what we want? And her justification was that once she gets her platform, she will then do something that is going to be of help to women in the community. But here's the problem that I have with Jaha's story. Number one, her ethnicity. She is a Soninka, as far as I know. And from my research and from my talking to many, many women here on the ground, there is no such thing. She claims that she was infibulated. That means as an infant, because the Soninkas normally circumcise young girls, girls and boys during infancy. She claims that as an infant, she was infibulated. Not only was her external genitalia removed, but she was sewn up completely. That procedure, first of all, is impossible to perform on an infant without killing that infant. Secondly, the Soninkas do not practice that. Infibulation, when and if it happens in the Gambia, is extremely rare, and it is usually imported from other immigrant communities. But the Soninke and the vast majority of practitioners in the Gambia do not practice infibulation. So she's lying about that procedure. It didn't happen. When I confronted her about that and asked her about that, she admitted to me that she didn't know what procedure she had, right? When I told her, but it's not possible for you to have had this, she admitted that she didn't know what procedure she had. And then again, I explained to her that the Soninke do a very minor nick during infancy for both girls and boys. And then to help her out, I said, but there are some groups that do a process called sealing when a girl is about 4 or 5. And that's when Jaha said, oh yes, sealing. And then all of a sudden now, she's telling new reporters that she had sealing. She also admitted to me in the same conversation that she had labiaplasty in Atlanta. Labiaplasty is a female genital cosmetic procedure that white, educated, wealthy women undergo in America. They call it labiaplasty. They call our own FGM. But she admitted to me that she underwent labiaplasty. Well, if you underwent infibulation as a baby, what remains for you to have this labiaplasty? So her story is very, very inconsistent. Not only that, there are other aspects of her story that don't add up. But the fact is that she was very direct with me about her intention. She knows very well that she's seeking a global platform. She knows that she's getting financing and that this is who she is, this is her career. And I told her a long time ago that, Jaha, I don't have any problem with you. Number one, don't come to Sierra Leone with any of that. So you haven't seen her anywhere near Sierra Leone. Number two, the minute it starts affecting Gambian women, I will step in and expose what you have said to me. So now it is affecting Gambian women. Gambian women are she's advocating for Gambian women to go to prison after lying about her procedure. And we're now expected to hold her as the role model, that her experience represents the experience of Gambian women. And I cannot do that. There's no amount of money in the world that will allow me to sell my mother's and my grandmother's and lie about them. So I think we need to be wary of who is who we're saying represents Gambian women when it comes to female circumcision. Again, the question, you have white female activists like Dr. Cynthia Burrage, I believe her name is, forgive me if, Hillary Burrage, who has circulated a petition. Again, she's been very vocal, she's been very active in dismissing the actions of the National Assembly. She's been very derogatory towards the president of the Gambia. And I find this very disturbing. I find this disturbing as a feminist, that she would use such language, and that she, as a white woman who clearly is uncircumcised, is assuming that African women and Muslim women who have undergone circumcision, that we are somehow inferior, or that we are somehow subjects, colonial subjects that need to be guided and instructed. So I'm very concerned about the language that she uses and her methods. Then we have our honorable members of parliament who were duly elected. Yes, they are predominantly male, but as I recall, there were free and fair elections, not so? When you all were voted into power. These are the individuals who have been voted in to represent women in their communities. Not only that, I believe when the ban was voted for in when the ban was voted for in 2015, 2016, it was a predominantly male parliament. So why are they now saying that the only reason why there's a bill to repeal the ban is because of men, right? So we need to be very careful about that. I'm going to end it here because I was really hoping to get questions from journalists. I am happy to answer any questions. I hope we can be able to translate for some of our women who are here joining us. Thank you so much for your patience.
All right, thank you very much, Sia, and I thank my ably representative from Australia and various women. I will just do a short briefing in the local language. Maybe if you have questions before we end our press, then we could also ask Prof. Sia. Generally, comme mbal konton na kal hakilo bulandi kodonke na kachamu kule di meala ko be dendin musola nyaka do tala be nga moyle angale kangola a fonyame adiamo senial akada musuti melan ko folo ko aboddan damen to karannal abama fango mele yalon ko atata wato men na kebayata a wuluta america a kuluta woto para bama ya bondi nan akoy ko be sammal na serelion pour ngene nge londi kol kono ako memme dendi muso ni muso la nyakaro ku fulalen ito la ado ya chosana ne dino aba sujun ku fulala walen ko kelin kel tata kelle marali la kolto ni musol fanan kol tata musol marali la kolto saka même fo ja walen ko ay diamo bayle ñun nol melan ko yela posol fanni to babo la ko do anin kol kaytende ko ndol gamme musol fa ma nyanto soto pro ka diamo na koto ate men long ay men karang ay men je walen ko musola nyakatota musola kole moti ke buka dunje abuka mabe je ke la ko mu ke la kote e musu buka dunje abuka mabe je so wayte ne ko fanyale me kam même foko atol be toro kono kelle batandiro landal kan kayte albital forcé ay ko mo bayla fulanjam fana me tani walen ko abama mu nosolati niadara ko nyi haramata mambetiya wala kuba koma abama me nosia karang aba fole ko kanata an sabanyam atatatale atarin kola anane man kuzo ka yitendo ko iteni dia sot la futo kono e ka batale e ka faale akwa mu kula di malon ko diam kensen non fem man taraje men ben dending jeri nyala karola tubabo la karola ido no fanan katale bare ka nyinyandi de e ka ko muso la nyaakarta koto pour ka dadaroke ala muso la musiakon so musol tubabol wol ya nyinyandi tan bara sanye kangola landol kam meron ko afe wala gambie muso la nyakarota tinyaro len ika muso la musiya tinyare ako yajele kolbe nyane ito la tubaburi ka nyinyandi le ande kata anda baka danje ndol dol men bi janna bama nyol na nanyolu anin na ngansimbal men kata ibuka ko di jaat ibuka ko di nyide ako bar tubabu ta e ka kodol le nyini priye tawoto ni aje tata rek e ka je he kadija du mentada wala na mentada wala nyi mentada he ko di tiolem momo mentada tubabu nyin kodo ite mo ko di ti balete so ya yi hande ko sanyin pesaro betende de ndol gambian kolu mbuga ko di nyinenka ndol ka ke ado anen ciosan bare tu anna dino bare tubabu ta ite ko do le nyinenka ando ko la fana momo mentata e ka makamo le dile le makamo me yalon ko ite mo molati me ko ila soto kantale ako nyinen ko di mela ala sa puruka ka jaboto pour nga faam nani nyaaw fana membe dending aje ko sañ membe diam la musol la koto musol la nyinde ka diam la koto wala activisol mela ko ye poso dile la kodo ye naye diam la koto ate men je wala ko musol la nyanda ke la musuya diam musol la nyinde ka la koto andum fentije mela ko nyinde ka musuya la ko fenken so membe dending jahadu kurela akata modi me alan ko abe loading ko nyun ko la bake annun ako kabiri diamo date interview to BBC jaha ya ko le kachata nyun ko ako ite men fo ye tinya nyame ila dindi ya wato nte mfuru da Gambia la anonga Gambia long anonga la sio fana lo soninke la sio wala sarahulo la sio ngalonne e ka kanyane andi ni ye dinni wala samba e ke samba comme kila sallallahu alaihi wasallam tambindi nyame bara sa ite ko ye tiñale sa ni atare ye tiñale wato mene men fay tata ibe dindi yare ne sa muna day man fa ako hani amanke o nyama so adana da fa ko ndefana nga dole lon ko ni tata ike sile wala ike sukule ako aha ntata walla amanda nje ko adefana ntata tubabulu comme nga men fo nyinyande plastic surgery akata woldo ya kaya aka ka sa nyin ku sabol ebe men foga ita killing itara munnela so fula nyam fana men lanje wolen ko nin tuba bol be nyinindiro kay en tol doyande kaje ko ndol be mantoro ko nyanta men na wolen ko ke to noma na ko do soto e bulu wo ko ni nga soto nga dina musola e ke la balu fenti ako jaha ayawla fa so nsalo mbe nga lonko nyin kol be sujirin kodolla anda daman danje fana ako tubabol men be tubabol imanta nyakarotado imalo men bijal itol be da dum nan na kolto nyaadile meliyalo ngede be tubabul imalo ka presol lande ando ko la national assembly fana ibe dun kan ka kolol ke invite kolto kana hakilol sunya ka kolbe fen ando isalon ko mol mete vote mete elect wala muso men dara nyakaro anen man ta nyakaro muso men keda muslimot anen man ke muslimot muso men lata adola anen man ke adola so ni te ko sañ ite be tilinna wo muso me ala on kare lata adola ala dino la ibe happening ibe contane pour yo muso ta ya soron kaswoto ye muso jodindi koto ite sañ ila representation ila lon kango député ya kono ye lanno men dire da pour ye banjun represent ye foñi represent ye basse represent ye kiang represent ite la lanno mu munati ako nyinne nyinin kar dati député el kono so même bi je walen ko nyim ferol be men be lande fem mantara koma number 1 ila sa ko pour kana dino tinyam fulanya wonna aron na cosano e malla fi nga bara sabanya o men bi je walen ko e jututa ndol afrika musol bara sañ tubabol ye la nyakaro ta sotole me alon ko itol ka toñi nyiyandi le malon falen fahami jam ye la nyakaro ta sotole andi ka kele bare ka nyiyandi bare wol mel ka ke walen ko momo melo kay nafulo solo wala ka tawo bundato anini dara bundato e ke jube ko ha ni mu ñom tawalati baron dollata madama ila da dinola ila da ila adola e ke samba wala ibuka fendi ngansim balla ako sa munam problème noti ako laba mo fanan même bi je walen ko ay ngirin karo kele ay kiskisi ro kele ala karamo fana kele anene man na activiste ngirin ka gambe activiste musu juma le fata nyaakaro tata musu juma le ma wuluno nyaakaro tata musu juma le fana man dingo so nyaakaro tata musu juma le fana le bije mena ko na dinkin soto anene ta soto la kodam aka jele ko mel tadi nyaakade ka dingol men soto ata fan ka surprise mo la ko ando kola ni ma o muso dema asi wuluno suwo ko agonna aruna chosano aninna ya ni ayi wen musu jamal ka wulu fayi wato mel la tanon man soto bare sa la tano soto da annu jamal bi je koytol man ta nyaaka da ako boro wol franka batale wulul dunda so même bi je wala ay men je ko wala ko kono wala ko atebe lorine pour que Gambian musol African musol anda même fo jaaha ko isi muru la beto de bare Sierra Leone ndol bi je karantale nga longo kele andu nga kale andum fan to lañi aado abe Sierra Leone ne ndol bakala bi mbakala sama isi dame do nyal ku yesteje so même bi je wala ko ñinnen ku molti fana melan ko ay même fo même be den musola nyaakaro tar pour media fanan sa ta ndol fanam be lorin damen do nkana boje andun sa lon ko yarafa ñin fero lebe keri ya ñi ñan baran to la jang ya ti ñam jana ika kodo le dundije baran do la jang kodo buka dunje jana ika mantoro soto la ako bi masalan ay research do fanan kele kel men ka fa ni tada kel la sunnoto wala ka siya musol men ka fa ka même fo men ka fa musol men ta dala nyaaka to dala ako bare say muna nete pareda pour ka je ko kel fanan kanata wulo kon bare ya lon ko kel e sembo sotole isi decision o keno mote no la ke bali bare say nyaatili ni musola e jututa musola e horomonte adili ni musola ani imam muso horoma imam pare ke londi wala ne kana ando kola ni kol bebe be kundo ne nafulo soto domandi ngoy ko leddi wo musolla sañi itol même bije itol ka jamal tal an ka kumo nyi sembandanda wasu kafo na kacata sanji monni faabe Gambia banko tubabol nga ko mune bonni la tubabo ina taja na tara ko do tije ba dafa na da funya ko itol la organisation même be nyi kelol jama babe ko di nyinolla anan dal faram be sirine kafo do na da national assembly be sirin député iko elafta pour ka bojoro dada pour ka musol nin ke imamol ke organize ke kacande musol nin la koto kabiri yo ke kajadan ga ko kayto nin dalafta menna aliya ke je musola nyakarota alkana ke je FGM sonkata musola banta menna ko ako honorable nimman FGM ke je nte ko do sot la tubabol bulu ako nimman FGM ko do kol ke je bi kon danga lan ne nga presque pour a fo ibaja ay ken ta fanan sadati ngoy ko sa lafta menna d'accord ta de ngata nga musol sesra FGM koto sorry female circumcision sonko da all wa 30 minutes mamben kanna akoy ko sa mbadu nga fo membi jeba nimman FGM ke je report kayto be men safela tubabol ko do dila molla ngoy ko ngay ko sa fahamta ala ke je ntenga sada soto le memem fola moli woto ñinnen koldi melan ko fonfa mem ka diamu a toñata ko kono annun se même fo atelier hanne ata en defata dole be nderam place la imam fade na fata dole bara be ñi awanya tol mero nal fata dole bi men bara place khalifa ñol fan mil fata dole bi je men be wol remplacer la annun tol te murla ko mabbi nde murla ko ma sama woto contente baake ala nala mbe siya fana konton ane journaliste lo mbijan ñinne ala kumo fekeda bare nga somarage ala atal fana annin kueta nan futala safo inshallah rabbi so natara the journalists also you may have anything to ask the floor is open then from there we can close with prayers inshallah yes so the ball is all yours the journalists if you have anything to ask the professor here is open. The question and answers, and you can play. Yes. Yes, Aja. Or our students di am domande jande ñini karobina ada fa lafta kala faro leke inshallah. Takbir. Allahu akbar. Alhamdulillah. After she's ready, if you have questions, then we can do it and we call it a day, yeah?
We look forward to your questions.
طيب أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله te me ala tentu la folo man saba man sakallanki o man so mi alon kala kiti kan tol benta ja o ko lambe sallan na kunti ba ma min keda kila Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallama annabiyo mo mi yalon ko ninga no man nenata filla do to bande ngan ko di yalan si filo mi yalon ko ten genol o ko la mbama nyon mi be siri janto ani na lon tan mi yalon ko anata janta ani na honorable ani na baadi mo president be be konto na muslimi ala control ndiro mi yalon ko assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh te ndolu kontanta bakele pour nyimbe ngo kan kumandi nan kana be nyimbe sifaro jam nyimmin na rata ndina tan tolle ma koy bar nyimmu nyemalu balti nyimmu nyebala falti Gambia ñimmanke ko ka foko ko ñing association card amane tamni bar ñimu 95% muslim Gambia mbere tamu ñinti eda ike dino ñi ka support le bebe ka so bar madame wuluta ñi l'islam wala kono idabe ñi kelo kono kane da bondi je woto ñimmiro nata kan tol ma ko jani nañu honorable min fere sin janton tol ma fen so dafa jere jef anim fulan jango ka foko ke wala ka diam ni na fo musolti je na mbe jele mbar ñaaje musol bu ka diam ñi bunda to baken tol malutare anim fulan jango fo annabi o muso soto tale bang aman soto woto nin ke wollo ta membaro kay diya mutanyi na wakantol kono faale wo kaytan dinal ka fa al sabati ke wol yal wasale ntolon min nyuta kanyan no min yaran ko ka miro tanan tubabul lebul pour ka dino fight bar say wato fura temede kaje ko musol be fintala la ngana nyanto fight comme mol wulta na nyamin kam mako ñi ngantol mal bakale pour ka diya ma bundañi because minu ka diya mal fay ka kuma dol fo jete imangay bole long bari be fanne tinya kan dala so mi yalon ko ni fata ibo dala so la janne tol bitala mi yalon ko musu kenson mi yalon ko lota association dama iko ka diam Gambia musol be to yalla ilo ko monte ka baylo 100% ko fan yalam because Gambia musol 95% muslim Gambia ita diam no be to yalla atare ni musol man kasha ini fiu musol dama ne ka cha itol fe mi be support ka ye fendi wala ye majority be tuje woto say majority fana nganna lodulam batandi kanyin ko kaje ko nyin ko nimbe falale nimbe balula bari mbakela le ka to monem nyinti ndolla dino la nyinti mi yalon ko na belief lem fentene to bola mbulo ko na fossaya woto kewol ka fo say wato sidan tol fonbe wi la nganna right side kaje ko say nyim fura tembel to madama na dino lem dun kila sallallahu alaihi wasallama ayya marla nyin na kala nyamin woto tolla waji wa minti mbakela woto sembeten tolla momoron din kamera ko mi nyimu mansa nyimben tolle mansa kun tolla national assembly men tolle selek ngeke jen tolni wolle be nyola because it tolle bilo dundi mbela free tolle fana ya bondi ntol man kay ni ka foko kam mansa oppose ka foko mansa kunda molle ye bambu mansa ko me ka foko ay bo mansa ma onda sana platinum bar ndol ni mansa mandra nyola de ndola national assembly member min yalon ko nge selek nga campaign o ke fayta national assembly ntol ngam bulo ciodi tollella andi tolle molti min yalon ko tol nyanna kam bulo ciodi tollella kali tolle mun tol nyaati woto ni wol bisalta ka tol ngal ko national assembly member o member balanta nyim bilola ngalo na yedale fandi yela ji fole fandi bari signal lonko ku fura be lawi national assembly member ye imma yeson tuba bon la kodola ye foyla palaso la kadum tolle be selek la kotake wada yedan kun tolla la vitamin na yawati andu ngamira ko majority e min fonyin koto obe koyrinne national assembly member ni te fan so sola ila si folo yela lord light andim tolla katum bele be jeton ngejele bilim bilona te tolle bulo wulindi kaje kon na bilo e pasa e tambi so munana bibe murula koma nim fo nyaara be nyin ko kono ni munati ne tolle murula koma woto tolle be bulo lekla minye wala mun national assembly member ye silan alanya ikana banko bula fitino kono nyaka bin mota ta bilifta minna alalon ko fenta bondino la bulo kono fasaya elben araslale aliyam mutaliyam mabo barke o mbakelale ndun tol mamuru ko ma soro nyindo katum na dinolem momoro din hannin adare ka tisa woni banko le temala ndon dana do woni kila sallallahu alaihi wasallam ko molala kila min fon tol bo wala tambi dal hanni tele mo president o ni ita tala da kila tala be kila tala ngede tatuje woto ayyan kana ikata momoro din ti ni ko be kundura mo ni la dino nyaaton tol fanal musolum paretale mbelola kaje ko nganna ret nga fayt katum be mo misrimol to nyim banko ka mini bukata yeren so kaje kon tita ndol mini ka tay tole ret jumal so ka fon tole ka kanata yo right but ning atra democracy mi ka 100% wala banko ka ite manta muslim wala sembo so kete arrest ka fo mona neta manta ka te muslim banko le ka ite mona sembo so pour muslim wala arrest minuta woto na député wala yasila aranya ya musolla wo si dal jube yen na kumbo dal jube ko nyum mon na ngay boleti nin atare be tubabol la dala sore fe yemin do ma sendi ndolle ke je tubabol me ke je woto e signul lon ko bulo min ye ke je min ye sikije mi jato so ba firan min ye ke je wala si bondino woto yesira aran to be jikinim ko ni be mo muslim wolati andu ni aju be min be kanyum ko mo fe be ta da nyaka to femba be ta da nyaka to so wol kana lo bi ka foko ko akana ka musolle tora e ka ko mo min fa ko man ta hawadra nan ka bale kafu ko musobu kan ide so nata ku yanto wala nata nyaka tam faniyalati o manke toñati musu kilinte je mi yaro ko be lo afo ko nta tata ku yanto ton ka ni ngafutu ko mbuka ni dia soto o wala nta da ku yanto ni birimbe wulu kam fatale am kono l'hôpital man so bar merol ya etan jam ko to ko nya tan ni fe wulu jonko ko l'hôpital man so bi ntol be nyinte ko développement o ketal ntol bi ka kono nya ste kono to so no fo nga afek e ka fo ko munemu ikafa ko ha sa ko no nama ko no fareke abe problem mo debe mo ne wosa anun kunu mel dara nyaka to le ko nya tan ni nan wulu tan ni saba ima affect fem man so o tala lon ko dina ke dole be nyento mbelola na dino ko mala bi mbelola ko mala sama andu fenana tan to jijala woto andu be parede nyinne param ba fole sembe tan to la nota na ala dam mambe jikiri wala woto fere iben kala nyami senke o nyama bar na dino lem nta murula ko ma bi nta murula ko ma sama ke wala diya mo nyinto ni wal diam do wal ka wasala bar han ka bi ko be la firi ya mo tol musolla sain tatala ni si ta face to face ngafo wo kola munay bo ko me la fita munay la sa nyin kola woto e ka foko bilit min fanan ka ha minu ka foko ni muso tata nyaka to na wulo yelo ka bon akumo nyom faniyata kerin hani faniya wa tije fam muna yelo min ka bo muso la akabu muso la nyaka to ta dula fo to ba wala fa ka bonan dinkira dolto nyaka to ta dula ni yelo la bodla fo man kiliya bari nyimbe mu fene mi yala ko ka fayne ko harbul baadi wala be ko nyin ko ma to nyama pare ka tama ko nyin ko bari tol kam bulo la kilati minna wala mun ninyim banko kumbota banko misiri mol kumbota député li kumbota tolle tola de albe baluri wo alta baluri wo alalo nin kumbota tolle tola nin gelata tolle tomal andu nim misiri mol ma yamfa arki man nalbe kiti la katun tolla arke je bar marki je nyin kam prale na dino kel woton tolin sembo min wala mun na dinoti woto député jamano bi tere be député boko no misri mol yake je misri mol kumbote tole ibalu to e man misri mol na dam ko le ma sembe tan to la notan na because min na lon tawa ya tan min dala ko mo ko nyay ko dole be je ka min din to misri mol masoto min be ko do dilan tolla barin sembo mo alalati woto nim fanal tata yen to yen na hakoto man na hako sorono woto ndol fanal sembe tan na notan na be mbulo la alal mo en kumbani banko ka alama alaye buruka ko do mi yalon ko yaadi tala pour yaade pour en to la dino kerale jane yen na hormo tiñajan to yen na yaati ñaja alama wako do alama alaye bisindi fa alama kele fo jaara lati wako do nyinna woto sembe tan na notan nan to be mbulo ciodi la min wala mun na député ti mbeda député hani kabin jikita ko iben fere nin adre be to nyaala nyino la katu majority min fo ngamira sa mbenya na blolo du majority be ajiro ko 95% abe kata nya kato le dantan do mandi wala kata fi do mandi na mane be kata oto min kata majority min kata yebule yeta min bu kata yewol fonal bule kanata moma modi stop ke kido bi jere mi yalo kaka musufula futu do kata do bu kata bari bu ko kuye bu ka sonka so mona na bi min bu kata al kalbe cross la wol ni ra tanya to min bu kata yewol bule firi ntelefana se yim foja musolla tabali ya nya kato be ya bimbe tubabol ya wala be nan na bangoka banko mi yalon ka fan address ko 95% muslim na bangoka jeno manke tubabol ya fenti mi haram ta barin tolle jamu muslima bankolati majority muslim wala be ja jeno mun tolle jam ku haram no bar ku nyawndi wala bar hanan na ado na dino mata wato imanke min ni ko be ke fan keloti ke fan na jele ntol manke tubabol ntol mu fi ngollati wato nin tubabol ya jeno mi je ku daare to mu wala right lati ntolle jam ku daare tan na right tan manyan na kake wato nim mo lafta ko balu sifa sama na banko kanyando pour ngawo support fi ntolla lor laminti wala mu haniti wato mbenna ko modan na janne bar mbenna député la yesira alanya ye muslim wala lor la jubi
So if you have few questions, yes. Maybe organize your mind. Is it okay?
Yes.
You can move the mic if you have questions.
They're asking the question.
Yes, no, they're direct.
Yes, because we are going to run away, and you just said 1 hour, it's been 2 hours now, so time is of the essence. So just one.
We put it so it's in the middle. That's the mic too.
All right, so we have it. Few questions, then we can call it a day, right? Yes. If you want to ask Prof. Sia, the floor is open. Yes.
So, just one quick question. My question is, the aim of this press conference, basically, from what I understand, is to put an end to external pressure for Gambian women to be able to choose freely on the practice. We just want to know, can you take us through as to, how do you intend to do it, and what are some of the procedures, knowing fully well that there are so many international donors that are funding activities or organizations that are in support of this FGMC.
Thank you. The first thing I would say is that Gambia is already doing an amazing job. I'm already so amazed at the work of the NAMS in resisting the outside pressure, especially Honorable Jiba, to even introduce a bill. And I've spoken to him personally about how he struggled and all the difficulties and the barriers. So already to be in this position right now is commendable for Gambia. Most countries that have implemented an FGM ban, right, cannot, because they're so dependent, not just dependent, but they're so locked into this fear that if they try to reverse it or discuss it, that the Western countries will remove aid. Is to just amplify the voices of grassroots women. Because I am able to see what is going on a higher level, it's my intention to be able to make that public, to say we know that this is going on, this is wrong, and to also plead to the National Assembly members to try to be as committed as possible to the democratic process within the Gambia. That there's more at stake than their immediate pockets or even political future and so on. That what is at stake is, are the lives of Gambian women, our culture, and the sanctity of our religion. That it is a core part of the Gambian constitution, the free expression of the free practice and free expression of religion. So these principles are really important, and to really weigh the so-called evidence of harm. Does it really exist? Are these studies that are being shown to NAMS, if they're even shown studies? Do they have control groups? Are they comparing circumcised versus uncircumcised women? Are these representative samples? Are there reasons why? Because sometimes they point to the WHO study, but that's flawed in so many ways. And I won't go into details now, but my hope is that National Assembly members will be very critical about what is being presented to them, that they will be able to separate propaganda from facts, and to be able to take into account some of the things that I've said in this presentation, that there are activists who are in it for the clout. We're also planning other activities to, again, sensitize grassroots women to make sure, not to outsiders, not to external donors. So we're having a huge rally in Brikama. We invite all of you to come next Saturday at Gambia College. In fact, one of the reasons why we limited this discussion here to journalists was because we know that we're having this much bigger rally of women, because we want it to be clear that National Assembly members, most of them are males, they represent the women. They represent their mothers' voices, wives, sisters, and daughters. So they're representing us women. That's the key message that we're going to be sending across in Brikama. Also on Tuesday, we're having a symposium. I'll send the link to all of you so that you can join in either in person or by Zoom. But we will have some of these experts that I've mentioned to you from around the world who will share their expertise. And we, again, ask you journalists to do your job. Go and read this.
So a follow-up question, because
yes, sir.
The next move is of not interest to me because it's more of like an advert. So the next move is, you understand that the parliament is divided into two factions. Those in support simply because of their fears for the withdrawals of donations or donors or funds to the Gambia, and those in support. What are you as an organization doing to engage the National Assembly members to actually enlighten them on your campaign to making sure that they support us?
Right. So I know that at the second reading, that the vote in April, 46 members, I believe, were in favor of repealing the ban, and there were only 4 who voted against it. Certainly, there's been a lot of lobbying. There's been a lot of pressure in that time to change the vote. And this is why we're having this kind of a press conference. There's certain things that you can't do at a rally, right? This is making it clear to the international community. I am a U.S. citizen. I'm American born. To make it clear to the American embassy, to the Biden administration, because I understand that there was even a call from the Secretary of State. I find that as an American to be outrageous. I cannot imagine other countries interfering in that way in legislation that is on the floor in the U.S. Congress, especially affecting the bodies and choices of women. Look at abortion, for instance. I can't imagine, like in Sierra Leone, where abortion is illegal, then you have Sierra Leoneans or the Sierra Leone government now trying to lobby individual congressmen in the United States to uphold a Supreme Court, well, there's not a ban, but the vote that they took against abortion as a right, as a constitutional right, or a right of women. So basically, I believe that Gambian women, African women, Muslim women should be treated with the same respect, the same regard, the same autonomy as Western women, as educated women in Western countries. Not asking them to be treated any differently, but to be treated the same, and to be treated the same as men as well. So we will continue to make that, again, known, and through we have a website, we have social media, and we will step up our campaign, especially through social media, so the young people can get involved as well.
It seems my question is not answered.
I'm sorry, what specifically, maybe I misunderstood the question. You said, what are we doing?
It's because currently the parliament is divided into two parts.
Yeah. The division of the parliament is anchored on 2 main factors. One, the pressure from the government. Secondly, aid and donors. And thirdly, others are bought. But the division now is clear. Him and us are working. One, his initiation is to anchor on a press conference. So this press conference will be shared in the whole country, and people will be happy. Secondly, Saturday coming next, we will have a women rally, where National Assembly members will be invited and be informed, and that their electorate who elected them, they want this law to be repealed. This is another issue that will also pose into it. It is now, when that is done, it is left with the National Assemblies, one, to respect the verdict of the people, or to go in support of government's agenda and the rest. So this is the whole clear thing, that the division of the assembly is factored in 2 things. One, politically. Second, threats of aid cut, and again also threats of Western, abandoning, restricting visa for members to travel. We've heard the US, UK Foreign Affairs saying plans are maybe at foot to work on banning. So the division of the parliament, and for him and us working, is this pressure will be shared to everybody. That's why media is asked to present. Then Saturday coming next, we are going to organize a rally of women, that parliaments will also be invited, to honor and attend, listen to the voice of the electorate. So if they fail to do so and do otherwise, it is now the parliament versus the majority populace. So the decision of deciding will now anchor into those elements. Do you respect the verdict of your citizen, or you respect the verdict of your political elites, or you respect the verdicts of the Western conspirators and propagandists in terms of trying to suppress the voice of the majority? So these are two anchored. Her organization and us, we are collaborating. It's not only me as a National Assembly member. We have a lot of National Assembly members who are also in this. And by Saturday coming next, they will all attend. Most of them will attend. And if not all, the citizenry who are concerned and they have effect under this will also attend. Then showcase. They will now sell the agenda. And if any National Assembly member wants to buy it, he will buy it and stand firm to support the will and aspiration of the majority. So if the minority is now affected by following other issues, then it will end into them. That's why I do always say that an egg is in the head of every National Assembly member, including the president. So either you leave the egg to fall, or you hold the egg fine. It depends with you. So that will be determined. Her job and the organization is more of advocacy, organizing seminars, enlightening, educating women, and informing them that what they are saying is harmful in the Gambia. The West, they are now celebrating it and funding it in money.